So one day I ran outside and saw a watermelon, so I ran to it. I picked it up and then ran it back to my house to open it up the only way I knew how, with rubber bands. I put some rubber bands on it and then I got a sheet for when it breaks. And then I continued placing rubber bands on it with the help of my brother, and it was starting to actually work. I kept doing it, and then my brother drew a face on it. Henry! And then we just kept going until eventually we ran out of good rubber bands. So I was left with no choice but to run out in the rain, get in my car, and drive to Walmart. I got there, got my rubber bands, and then headed back home to get back to placing them. And eventually I could even see the indentation in the watermelon. And then I actually predicted it.
It's gonna bust.
When?
Any second.
Oh, God.
I just know it.
Instant replay. And it left this water rubber band. It's like for me to turn it into a rubber band ball part 2. So one day I ordered all this stuff to make elephant toothpaste. I dumped out all the water, then added the first bottle, some food coloring, and the last thing. And it did nothing but fizz up a little. I guess I ordered the wrong thing. I kicked it and then blew the cap off. And then I went to Walmart to get the stuff to try again, and they were out. So I calmly left and went to a different store. And they sort of had what I needed. And I went home, added the peroxide, the dish soap, the food coloring, and the yeast. And just my luck, I think the container was too big, and it just foamed up a little. So I dumped it out, and then sang a new hit single.
Sometimes I don't want to be happy.
Then I touched it.
Elephants really brush their teeth with this stuff?
And bended it. Like if I should try this again. So one day I wanted to see what I could cut in half with a power washer. I first got this broken ramp and it did nothing, so I got a stronger tip and it still did nothing. It also failed on ice cubes, but cut a banana clean in half. Then I got a piece of cardboard and cut it until it worked. After that, I took a piece of paper, folded it into a paper airplane, and sawed it right in half. Next, I got a plastic bottle that I ended up having to secure and cut. And it put a hole in the bottle. And next I tried a can and it did nothing until I went to pick it up. Next I tried a plastic ball, failed, and a tennis ball, which actually kind of worked. It took like all the fuzz off, and at the end, it was pretty mutilated. Then I decided to do my foot. Ha, psych. So one day I went out to this really cool natural spring in Florida, and I had to jump off this ledge to get in. So I did, and it was freezing. But it was also really clear, so I put my goggles on and swam on down. And then resurfaced for some air, and then went back down and spotted this really cool underwater cave and some fishies. And then I went back up and got some flippers to better navigate the water. I got in with them, and they did help a lot. And then I got sidetracked and went to this little waterfall and this tree I touched, and then drank some of the water in case it was the fountain of youth. And then I swam back down to the cave, and I could touch the entrance before I had to swim back up for air. And then I swam down to a different cave I saw, and it was pretty cool. And then I swam back up and met this kid that followed me on TikTok. I talked to him for a bit, and then I left because I was cold. So one day I went to Walmart to get a Power Wheels, but they were too expensive, so I left and got this used Viper that needed a battery instead. I went to the battery store and got what I needed, then went home, screwed off the seat, then put the new battery in, and screwed the seat back on, and got on it, and took off. And drove down the driveway and into the road where it wouldn't move. So I gave it a little push, and then I headed for the ramp where I made a massive jump. Then I drove pretty fast down a hill, but the problem was getting back up the hill. And we ended up having to carry it, and then I put it in my car and took it out to the country to really open it up. I drove out to the road and floored it. Gone I went, and then I ended up crashing. And I got up and ran into the field, leaving behind my awesome Viper. So one day I ordered an inflatable couch to float down the creek in. I unwrapped it and then let it air up and got on it. And then folded it into a couch and my dog got on it. Then we took it outside, put it in my brother's truck, and went to the creek. I sat by the highway and then carried it all the way down over the rocks and out to the water and out to the launching point where I pushed off. And it worked really well and was amazing. I continued on and then decided to lay down and just enjoy the ride. And then I almost ran into a tree. And I kept going out even further and waved goodbye to my brother. And before you know it, I was just gone, out of sight of anything but the GoPro. But eventually I came back and dragged it all the way back to shore, up the rocks, and into the truck, and all the way home. Part 3 of filling a hamster ball up with ball pit balls. So it's pretty cool now, but everyone wanted more, so I went back to Walmart. And it looked like they were out, but I found 5 in the back and bought them all. Then I put them in my car, went home, and put cardboard over my broken ramp. Then set the hamster ball down and filled it up with the ball pit balls. Then got in and let it air up. Psh! And it was done. I went off into the yard, and then I slid in it. Then I went onto the street and hit the ramp, and disappeared. then reappeared and went back onto the road, rolled around for a bit, and after that, I hit the ramp again and lost my water bottle, so I dove down and found it. Then I got out and jumped on it, like if you want to see me put it in the creek. So one day I wanted to put a bunch of ball pit balls in my giant hamster ball. So I went to Walmart and got 700 balls, took them to my car, loaded them all up, and went home. And put them all in my hamster ball with the help of my brother. Then I got in and let it air up. Psh, until it was done. I splashed all the balls around, and then I headed off the stairs, into the driveway, and on out into the street, where I slipped and fell. I then jumped up into the balls, and then I wanted to hit this ramp, and I just ran over it. Then I went back onto the road, ran for a bit, then fell again, and made a snow angel, and threw some balls. I got back up and walked off. Then I shook the entire thing, and then went back on home, got out, got back in, then got out, fell on it, and used it as a beanbag. Like if I should do it again with more balls. So one day I wanted to put chalk dash lines all around my neighborhood like I saw this girl on TikTok do. So I went to Walmart and got some spray chalk and some regular chalk. Then went home and tried to make a stencil out of cardboard but failed. Then I tested out some spray chalk, and after that I measured the middle of the road and marked it. Then I tied some rope to a hoverboard to try to pull me, but it failed. Then I made it longer and it still failed. So I tried walking, but that sucked, and I thought it'd be easier with some normal chalk, but it still failed. So I got out a hoverboard I thought was broken, and it worked perfectly. And when I ran out of one piece, I got a new one, and kept going all the way until the end of one side of my neighborhood. I ran out again, but kept going, and then was done. And then I went back home, got some more chalk, and went out to the other side of my neighborhood to get started. And I finished off the neighborhood and ran out of chalk. And then on the way home, my hoverboard died, so I had to carry it all the way home. And now here's driving before the lines, and here's driving after. Part 3 of making a giant paper airplane. So I made this paper airplane and threw it off a bridge, but it failed. So I put it in the dumpster and made a new and improved version. And then took it to a new spot to test if it was better than the other one. And yeah, it was. And it even did a backflip. Swoosh. But the wings still didn't have enough support, so I added some cardboard and went to try again. I threw it off the hill and had my best flight yet. My brother also threw it, and then I flew it a few more times as well. And something about the plane just made it kept doing flips and stuff. I don't know why. I left, and then the next day it was less windy, so I came back with my old plane as well to test them both out. And they both did pretty bad, but then I threw it again, and they did all right. And my brother had some pretty good throws. Phew. And then I left. Go watch the full video on my YouTube, Dylan Ayres. So one day I wanted to make a giant paper airplane because my last one failed, so I went to Walmart, got some tape and some poster board, and then went home to start construction. I started by positioning 4 pieces together, and then I took some tape and taped them all together. Then I flipped it over and taped all the creases on that side. Next I folded it in half, laid on it, and then unfolded it and folded all the little necessary folds in order to make the plane. I folded one side down, added some tape, and then folded the other side down and added some tape. Then I folded the plane in half and folded down one wing, and then folded down the other one. I added some more tape to it, and I was done. So I put it in my car and drove on out to a bridge to throw it off. It was kind of flooded, but I threw it anyway, and it totally failed. So I went down there, over a puddle, and into the woods to go get it. I got it out of the water, and it was totally destroyed. Like for part 2 for me to make a better one. So one day I got a comment that said to fill my hamster ball with Orbeez in water. So I dumped a bunch of Orbeez in, zipped it up, and then let it air up. And once it was aired up, I added some water until it was done. Then I set it in this spot and let it set overnight and came back the next day and it looked like this. I deflated it and then messed with the Orbeez. And I'd never really even touched Orbeez, so it was pretty cool. I then got in all the way, which was really hot because it sat in the sun all day. And then just messed around with the Orbeez until it was all the way filled up. And then I walked around in it and then shaked all around in it like this. And then splashed them all. And then did a snow angel. I also went out on the road, ran for a bit, then got hot and tired and got out. Let me know what else I should do in it. So one day I decided to fill a giant hamster ball up with water and get in it. I moved it to level ground and then put the hose in to let it fill up. Then I put some wood down so it wouldn't roll and let it fill. And here's the checkpoint. It's pretty cool looking and I hit it on the side and then added some more air. And after that I let it fill up to this point. And I'm going to stop it when it gets to the zipper. And it got there, so I stopped it. Then I put some goggles on and unzipped it, but it broke. But I got in anyway. I went in and swam to the side. And I looked like a fish. And then I struggled to get out. Then I threw the snorkel and went back under with just the goggles. And it was pretty cool. I swam around, did a circle, and then did another circle, and then struggled again to come up. And it was kind of like a water balloon, so I jumped on it, rocked on it, flipped on it, and then swam on it. Let me know any other ideas you have for me to try. So one day I went to Walmart and got Flex Seal to test on random junk. I started off with a basketball, sprayed the entire thing until it was completely covered, and then I moved on to a plastic ball and did it. And after that, I broke a hoverboard that already didn't work and sprayed it. Then I did this old ramp with paper covering the big hole. Next, I sprayed this broken snow shovel and came back the next day when everything was dry. And I kicked the basketball, messed around with it, and it mainly just felt like rubber. Next up was the shovel, and it looked pretty repaired until I tried to dig with it. Now here's the plastic ball, and here's the hoverboard that fell apart when I tried to touch it. But the ramp actually looked pretty good, so I decided to jump it. And it held up, so I jumped it again even faster. And it didn't hold up. Let me know what else I should try. So one day I ordered this zip line to put in a tree. I opened it up and there was a lot of different random stuff I didn't know much about, so I had my dad help. We took it out and decided on what tree to put it in, and then I got some stuff, dropped a ladder, put it in the tree, and attached this thing around it. Then I tightened it and added the actual zip line to it and got some more stuff. We talked about the instructions for a bit and then looped the handlebars on and wrapped the zip line around the other tree, which took until dark to get the slack out of. So we left and came back in the morning and my dad finished tightening it up. Then I tested my weight on it, for safety, and went for it. And it was pretty fun. Don't try this at home though. Then here's my brother who went after me, and he actually got pretty addicted to the zip line and went again. And here's me going without sitting on the seat. Yeah, I almost hit my feet on a lot of stuff. So one day I wanted to see what all I could destroy from dropping my band ball up high. So I went to Walmart, got a chair, a Hot Wheel, a lot of Diet Coke, a container, and a watermelon. Then I went home, set up a ladder, and dropped the Diet Coke, and it did nothing. So I threw it, and then I dropped the band ball in another bottle. And when that failed, I shook it up and did it again. And it worked. And then my brother threw me one that I dropped. And after that, I decided to crush the Hot Wheel, and it held up pretty well. And then I dropped the 21-pound ball on the bin, and it did the most damage so far. But not enough. And after that was this tiny chair thing that got kind of broken, and I fell. Next, we dropped it on a water gun, and a piece came off. Then I shook the rest of the Diet Coke up and knocked them over, and then threw them all, one by one. And all this destroying was a lot like this game I've been playing where you drop and smash random stuff. Click the link in my bio if you want to download it. And lastly was the watermelon, and it got crushed. And I even ate some. So one day I got this comment that said to throw my rubber band ball off a hill, so I put it in my car and drove on out to a hill. I got out and carried it on up the hill, which was hard because it weighs 30 pounds, and I got to the top and threw it off. And it bounced and bounced and then started rolling, and it started bouncing again towards the bottom and went on out into the parking lot and just kept on going. And eventually I had to chase after it and jump over a fence, and I had it. And then we went back up the hill to try it again from this angle. And it went on down pretty steady, and then it looked like it was going to hit my car. And I got kind of nervous, so I started to chase after it. But it barely missed it and just went on out into the field. So one day someone commented to use my waterproof spray on a cardboard boat. So I found this cardboard box and taped it up on all sides to seal it. Then I cut out a hole for me to sit in, and then taped that. And then I started spraying all the waterproofing stuff. I sprayed it all around and on every single side until it was done, and then I let it sit overnight and came back the next day, put it in my brother's truck, and took it on down to the creek. And when I put the box in the water, it was still dry. So I set it down, got in, and started rowing. And it was completely working. I went out under the bridge, and then further, and then just chilled for a second, and kept on rowing. This was probably one of the best cardboard boats I've ever made, and I just kept on rowing forever. So one day I got out my giant hamster ball to fill with ball pit balls, cause why not? Now this one has a hole in it, unlike the last one, but I'm gonna go in it anyway. I splashed around in it, kicked it, and then went off. And it was pretty crazy. I don't know how to describe it, but then some balls started to leak out, and even more. And after all the balls fell out, the wind picked up and started blowing them everywhere. But we got all those cleaned up, and then the next day filled it back up because I had an idea to tape up the hole and try it again. And it worked just fine. None of the balls were leaking. I ran through the puddle, then ran down the road, then ran back, ran through the puddle again, did another flip, and then came to the stop, and here's what the inside looks like, and let me know what else I should try. So one day I decided to make a giant paper airplane out of this board stuff. And my first design was just a basic airplane that had a problem of the nose going up. Except for this one flight that did really good for some reason. But I looked up on the internet and there were some ways to fix this with this type of design that kind of helped. But I ended up making a whole nother plane with a slightly different design, taking them to this cliffside. I first tested the planes off this little hill and they did pretty decent. And then I threw them off the cliff. And the first one just kind of went and then nosedived. And the second one went up, and then also nosedived. And I took them back up and tried again, and the first one was doing really good until it flew in the tree, and the second one was doing really good until the wind picked up a lot and made it nosedive. The planes eventually fell out of the tree, and I had a few more good flights, including this one. So I think I'm just going to wait for a less windy day and try again. So one day someone commented telling me I should make the plane even bigger, so I put two boards together and made the plane even bigger. Here's the new one. But it still had a problem. The tip was raising up, so we added some weight on the tip, and it flew pretty good. Here it is flying into a tree. But I wanted to get it up on this roof to throw into wide open spaces, so I threw it up and then tried to figure out how to get up. And then I found this thing and used it as a ladder. I was up, and here was the first throw. It was kind of bad, but the next flight was actually pretty good. But I still wanted a perfect flight, so I threw it again, and this one looked like it was going to be perfect until it raised up a little bit and then did a flip. And then I threw it again, and this looked like the best flight yet. It was just sailing until it hit a tree. I also tested this store-bought plane, which flew pretty good, and then gave this one last throw into the field. And I'd say this plane was a success. So one day I bought a ton of cardboard sheets at Walmart to build the biggest cardboard boat I could make while still functioning. And I used to make cardboard boats all the time, but I hadn't made one in a while and I felt like making a huge one. I pieced the boat together, taped it up completely, taped all the flaps down, flipped it over, taped this, and then put a bunch of sheets in the bottom. And after that was taped completely, we flipped it back over and then added another sheet, taped that down fully, and then I decided to add some Flex Seal. I did this to help waterproof the boat, and then I sprayed this on there. But I ended up coming back the next day and adding another coat anyway because it felt flimsy still. After that was done drying, it was time to test it out at the creek. I put it in the water, got in, and laid down. That was the only way I could be stable. The current wasn't very strong, so I tried to row without much luck, and then I saw a leak, and the boat started to collapse in. I kept on pushing, trying to stay afloat, but with no luck, we eventually went down, and I was never seen again. Not really, but I was pretty sad. So one day I got a comment saying I should drop my 110-pound rubber band ball on my saran wrap for it. But it's really heavy, so I got a tarp, tied it up with paracord, and then tried to lift it with a pulley system. And we ended up having to use a truck to get it up because it's too heavy, but we put it on the wrong branch and couldn't get it up from there, so we put it on a different one. Still couldn't get it up from there. But on the third time we got it, and I pulled it onto the fort and cut it open, and it was on there. It made it sag a lot, but I moved it over to here and then threw it off. What else should I try? So I'm now at a rubber band ball part 41, and my 25 pounds of rubber bands got here, so I took it upstairs along with my giant rubber band ball. I took it all to the room where I placed the bands, and then I threw that in a package and opened it up. And each bag weighed 5 pounds. I dumped them all out, and the bands were pretty good. So I dumped out 10 pounds of bands and got to placing. And it was a lot, so I had my brother help me with this one. And we were going for so long, my phone even cut out because it ran out of storage. But we finished eventually and then took it downstairs. I got it all the way down and then weighed it in at 123 pounds. I took it outside and just look at it next to a wheel and next to my head. And here's my best effort at trying to pick it up. I can barely do it anymore. Let me know what else I should do with this ball. So one day, after destroying a bunch of stuff with my homemade rubber band ball wrecking ball, I got a microwave and decided to go again. And it weighs like 123 pounds now, so it should do more damage. Here it goes. Yeah, I didn't think it was enough damage, so I set it back up and went again. And it did get nailed, but I wanted to hit it one more time. And then I put down this kickball, thinking it would go super far, but it didn't. So then I got out this broken TV that I failed to smash before. And it did that, and completely destroyed the microwave that was holding it up. I walked up to it, and then my brother pulled the door off. Let me know what else we should smash. So one day I put my 150-pound rubber band ball back on the zip line to crush this car. And it was just a parts car my dad had laying around, so it wasn't a big deal. Pulled it back and threw it at it. And here's the slow-mo caving in that door. Then we saw a cat, and then I threw it at it again. And missed because we moved the truck, so we moved it again and threw it again. And this time it nailed it. It was a pretty big dent, but I still wanted more, so we did it again. And it knocked over the GoPro. Then we did one last go, and it was like the biggest dent yet. Let me know what else I should smash. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 43, and I got another box of rubber bands. I dumped them out, and these bands are even thicker than the last ones. I then dumped out another bag and got to placing them. And it was way easier to place these bands because they're twice as thick, and I got a lot more done with less time. I finished it up, and then I took it all the way downstairs to weigh it, and it weighed in at 149 pounds. I then took it out to the street to try to pick it up, and just look at it next to my head. It's huge, and I couldn't pick it up. Like if you want me to keep on going. So one day I put my rubber band ball back on the zip line to crush some more stuff. I went to Walmart, got this thing, this lamp, this clock, and this other clock, and this weird picture. I put the lamp together like this, and then I first started with the alarm clock and shut it right off. Then hit it with a baseball bat. And then I did the other clock like this. And after that, we set up the picture of whatever this thing is. And it got crushed. Then we put this thing and put the GoPro inside, and it made a cool looking slow-mo. But there wasn't enough damage, so we did it again. And again. Just look at it, getting smashed. And then I just hit it with a baseball bat. Then hit the lamp. Let me know what else I should smash. So one day someone commented for me to use hot glue sticks to try to get the dents out like 5-minute crafts. And I'm going to try because I put quite a lot of dents in this car with my rubber band ball. I went to Walmart, got some hot glue sticks, and then went home to fix these dents. The little lighter wasn't big enough, so I got out this blowtorch, stuck it on, and it pulled the metal but didn't work. So I tried again and still failed. Yeah. So I got out the longer sticks with more fire. Don't try this at home. And failed. And failed. And failed. And failed again. And then I tried to make a smaller dent with a bat, thinking the dents were too big, but that wasn't the case.
This is indeed cap.
So one day it was rubber band ball part 44, and first I had to get the ball out of the zip line. I got it out, and then I had to carry it all the way upstairs. I made it up, and then I took it to the room where I placed all my bands and got to place them. I placed the entire pile of like 15 pounds of rubber bands for quite a while until I was done, and I carried it all the way downstairs and weighed it in at like 164 pounds. Then I took it out to the street and just look at it. It's massive. Can't pick it up. I just can kick it. Like if you want me to keep on going. So one day I rented a one-man bucket lift to drop my 160-pound rubber band ball on top of stuff. And the first time I went up, I just dropped it on nothing to see how it would bounce. And here it was. Bounced pretty high. And remember, don't try this at home. Then we got out this car to smash. Here's the slow-mo. It put a pretty big dent in the roof. Then my dad went up and dropped it on it. And it put another pretty big dent in the roof. Then I moved onto the windshield and completely caved it in. Here's that slow-mo. And then I did it again. Here's an inside perspective. Yeah, the car was pretty crushed. And then I dropped Mentos and Coke. And this one was the best rocket I ever done in my life. Just look at it. Like if I should crush some more stuff. One day after dropping my giant 160-pound rubber band ball on a giant water balloon, it kept on rolling and rolling into the woods down a steep hill, and I had to go get it. So I made my way down into the woods and to the rubber band ball. And a thorn hit me when I tried to get it out, and then I just kept on pushing as much as I could. And it was really heavy at 160 pounds going up a pretty big hill, and I kept falling, but I made my way up and was really tired. But I still had this piece of furniture to smash, so I dropped it on it. Here's the slow-mo. And the pineapple was still alive. And then I got out this 1968 Camaro. Just kidding. I'm now all the way to rubber band ball port 45, and I decided to do it outside today. And my rubber band ball also needed bands bad because it was looking kind of gross. And I placed bands out in the nice weather for quite a while. And just enjoying life, you know, placing rubber bands until I was done. And the ball now weighs more than me at 174. It's getting impossible to move, so I just lay on it. And yeah, like if I should keep going. So one day I took my giant hamster ball out in the rain and filled it up with more water to slide around in. It was pretty cold, but it was also really slick and fun to slide around on. You could just run around and then start flying in circles. Here I am with a lot of momentum. Then I got cold, so I took a break and ran to a puddle and then went and jumped in my hot tub. After that, I got out, filled the ball back up with more water and got back in and rolled around through the puddle, slipped around, ran down the road and did a flip. And then did another one. So it's now rubber band ball part 46, and now I just take the rubber band ball outside to work on it because it's too big to just keep inside. I had my pile of like 15 pounds of rubber bands and placed the whole pile for a long time until I was all out of bands and pretty tired. And now the ball weighs like 190 pounds almost. Here I am trying to jump across it and then fly, and I can't pick it up. And I'm going to have to order some even bigger bands, so like if you want me to keep going. So one day I ordered around 300 Rubik's Cubes to try to make one of those paintings that I keep seeing on TikTok. We made a frame, I tested it out, and it would do. It was alright. But then I had to think what I would make and how I would make it. And I decided I would make Shrek using a color grid type thing. So then I started placing cubes, and I underestimated how long it would take. It ended up taking like 4 hours. And I didn't have black, so I ended up using orange. So when I got done, I rearranged some cubes and also took some stickers off and made it look even better. And the further you go, the more it looks like Shrek. So it's now part 47 of the giant rubber band ball. I let it hit a ramp and then got out 25 pounds of bands, dumped them all out into a pile, and started placing them. And this was a lot of bands, the most I've ever placed. So I thought, how could I do this more efficiently? And I had the idea, pay someone. So I paid 2 friends that day to finish up this pile. And they got busy placing a lot of bands while I watched occasionally and then switched in and out even once. But then they kept going until eventually they had a much smaller pile left and just threw that pile on and it was done. And it now weighs 213 pounds. And I also decided to spray paint it because I saw a comment that told me to. Like if I should keep going. One day I decided to take my old giant paper airplane that didn't fly very well and recreate it with great stuff. So we coated the whole thing in this great stuff and outlined it until it was done. And then we let it dry and came back. And the paper wasn't very easy to peel off. It took quite a while, but eventually I got it and it looked like this. And then the next day it was ready to fly. Yeah, the first flight wasn't great, neither was the second, and not really the third. It was a little bit better. And after another fail, I cut some off and had this flight. It was pretty good. Then I threw it in a pool and jumped in. So one day I decided to fill this giant hamster ball up with water and swim in it. And this one's a lot bigger than my last one, so it'd be easier to fill with water. And I stopped it at this level so I could still be able to get in and swim in it. And then I jumped in. And it was pretty cool inside. I went underwater and here I am. And then I came back up and put some goggles on and went back underwater again. And it was really cold, so I got out for a sec, got in the hot tub, and then got back in with a floaty. And then spun around. And then I decided to turn it into a giant batch of Kool-Aid. Full videos on my YouTube, Dylan Ayres. So one day I decided to make a life jacket out of great stuff and a pair of slides. Started with the life jacket, then outlined a pair of my slides and filled that out. I messed with the slides a little bit off camera to make them look like this, but the next day they were pretty good. I could walk in them, jump, and even run. I also threw them in this tiny pool and they floated. And then I got out the life jacket and tried to run the pool thinking I would run on water, but I didn't. And then I took the life jacket to the creek to test it. And when I fell in, the great stuff life jacket perfectly saved me. And it worked amazingly. Still do not attempt this. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 48. I dumped out 5-pound bags of rubber bands and got to placing. With some help because this was going to take a long time alone and this was a lot of bands. We kept placing and eventually had all the blue paint covered. And then eventually we got tired and took a break and then came back and finished off the entire pile until there was no bands left. Put it on the scale and it weighed in at almost 240 pounds. And it takes 2 people to pick it up. Like if I should keep on adding bands to it. So one day I filled this inflatable pool up with oobleck, liquid solid. When you hit it, it's a solid, and when you move slowly in it, it's a liquid. We spent a long time, like 2 hours, mixing it all up until we had it full. And it was working. I stepped in it slowly and sank and then ran on it, and I was alright. I also tried hitting it with an axe and almost got it stuck. Yeah, don't try this at home. This stuff is crazy though. I got in and got stuck, so I just buried myself in it and then put some on my head. Then I got out and tried to walk on my hands. And it worked for a little bit. Then I put some on my face, and when I slapped myself, it didn't even hurt. Then I laid down, got out quickly. My friend jumped across it, and then I hit it with a tennis racket in slow-mo. And then washed off. Comment any other ideas. So one day someone left a comment asking how bulletproof oobleck was, so I'm going to test it. And don't try this at home, I'm a pro. We started with a 22 and it did this. Look at the slow-mo. And it put a bunch of bullet holes in the box. Then we shot at it some more. Here's another slow-mo of it obliterating and then doing that. Then I poured it all into this other container to mix up and make more oobleck and blow it up. And here's that. Then I decided to blow up this other bag of cornstarch. And then we wanted to test if a tiny rubber band ball was bulletproof. And we shot it and it knocked a few bands off. Then a watermelon and it did this. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 49 and I have 25 pounds of rubber bands again. I dumped out the whole pile and when we began placing for a long time, as you can tell by the clouds going by in the background, this took forever. But eventually we got the entire pile done. And the ball is completely massive. I weighed it in at 263 pounds and look at me sitting on it and then falling and we can barely pick it up together. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 50, which is literally insane. So I'm just going to place another pile and see how heavy I can get it. Right now it's at like 260 pounds. We placed for a long time, which was getting kind of exhausting. And be sure to comment any ideas you have for this rubber band ball now, because it's getting pretty heavy to do anything with. But we finished and we weighed it in at 287 pounds. The camera just doesn't do it justice. And then it fell on me and I exaggerated the fall, but then it actually hurt my foot. Like if you want me to keep going. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 51, and it is huge. I didn't get quite as many rubber bands this time, though, because there was a delay in shipping this week. But the ball's close to 300 pounds now, and I want to get it there. I placed this entire pile all the way until my phone died and stopped recording. But I still finished the ball and tried to weigh it, but the scale was being weird and wouldn't tell me any accurate numbers that made any sense. But I'm assuming it's close to 300 pounds. And the ball almost tried to roll into a car. Like if I should keep going. So one day I went to Walmart and got all the rubber bands they had to make another rubber band ball. Because a lot of people have been wanting me to cut my giant 300-pound rubber band ball in half with a 1,000-degree knife, but I don't want to do that, so I'm going to make another smaller one, starting with this small one and adding a bunch more bands to it, until eventually it looked like this. And it wasn't near as big as my giant one, but check out this cool little trick when you drop them. It launches them. And it was time to cut first this even smaller one. It cut it right in half and burnt right through it. And then this one. And it's worked its way through. And eventually I sawed a little bit and it just popped all the bands off. Remember, don't try any of this stuff at home. It wouldn't go through the tinfoil ball, so I just threw the knife at the tree and stuck it. So one day I ordered this new hamster ball that I thought would be better to run on water with than my old hamster ball, but it was kind of too short, but I dealt with it and made my way down to the lake to test it out. I got exhausted in the way, but I eventually made it there, and I normally put my hamster balls in creeks where there's a current, and I didn't realize you needed a current or else you just stay in the same spot, so I couldn't make it to the dock. But it was still pretty cool inside, and I tried to spin as much as possible to get some more movement, but after a long while of spinning and doing a bunch of flips, I was making no progress. So I just parked it into shore, got out, and then started skipping rocks sad. Let me know what else you should do. One day on part 53 of my giant rubber band ball series, I thought it was like any other rubber band ball video, placing a bunch of bands, but the clouds began to move in. After a while of placing rubber bands, it began to pour, and the rain just kept coming down harder and harder, so I got the bean back to safety and then had to come back for the rubber band ball. Pushed that over 300-pound rubber band ball through the rain and into the garage, and then went back, making 2 trips to get all the rubber bands to place it in the garage. I shut the garage door, dried off the rubber band ball, and we got to work placing all the rest of the bands until we were eventually done. And the ball now should weigh like 347 pounds, like if I should keep on going. One day I decided to see if I could make foam board into a boat that would float me down the creek. This is going to be my first part to a series where I test if random objects or materials will make a boat. I had the boat made and then I took it down to the creek, put it in the water and got in. And at first I didn't think it was going very well. Then I put a hole in it and had to move it to deeper water. So then I tested it again and completely ruined the boat. Look at it. So then I ran off sad, but comment any other boat ideas you want me to make. So it's now the 1-year anniversary of me starting the giant rubber band ball from an exploding watermelon. And ever since then, you guys have kept wanting me to add bands, so I have, all the way to now, which is part 52. I also bought a new scale to weigh the ball and a watermelon to crush at the end of this video with the rubber band ball. The ball currently weighs around 300 pounds, and this is like 25 pounds more of rubber bands we're adding. And the camera did keep cutting out at times due to the heat, but we kept on placing bands until the entire pile was gone. And we tried to weigh it, and we couldn't quite tell, but we think it was like 320. And we tried to pick it up, but we couldn't, so we had to roll it onto the watermelon and completely crushed it. But it was pretty good. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. One day I took an air mattress and a bunch of cardboard and decided to make a cardboard air mattress type boat. And my goal was to make it to where you couldn't see any of the air mattress, so it just looked like a complete cardboard boat. I got it completely finished and it looked pretty cool. I took it out to the lake, then I jumped on and paddled my way out. And it was working. I was smooth sailing, then I got blown into the trees, but eventually pushed my way out and made my way around the dock thinking I was going to dock it, but ended up just going all the way around and then headed for these rocks, where I parked the boat for a little while, got off, and then kept going. And I went all the way around this little peninsula and went to shore. Let me know what else I should make. So one day someone commented and told me to make a boat out of plastic containers, so I made one out of these plastic bottles. I taped this seat on like this, and it was ready to float down the creek. I got on and I took off, and it was kind of hard to balance, and then I fell. But I got back up and continued on down the creek. The boat was kind of unstable, but I continued on as far as I could go. And when I made it to the big current, I was unbalanced and fell off. And then I lost track of the boat. It was floating down the creek, so I chased after it and hopped on. And then fell again. And also chased the oar down and finally headed back. Comment what else I should make a boat out of. So one day on Rubber Band Ball Part 54, I loaded up the giant rubber band ball with my brother and we drove it out to a warehouse where I would store it. I let the rubber band ball out and stopped it, and this is its new home. And then I dumped out a bunch more bands to begin working on it that night. And my friend and I got busy placing as many bands as possible as the night began to get darker. Now I'm in the process of getting another scale for this thing so I can get the exact weight perfectly. But it's massive and weighs around 370 pounds. I rolled it around, ran with it, and then rolled it back. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I got a bunch of bubble wrap and ramen noodles to make 2 separate boats for my Will It Boat series. I started with the bubble wrap and taped these 3 things together with a little bit of cardboard and went off on the creek. It was hard to balance on, but it floated at first. And I floated for a while until eventually water started to seep in and I had to get off and drag it to shore. Then I threw a rock and the next day got started on this ramen noodle boat. And the plan was to keep all the ramen in the boxes because I didn't want any of the noodles to get in the water. But I finished the boat and took it out to the creek and it floated pretty decently, but when I got on it, it started to sink. And it stayed afloat, but not with me. Maybe a squirrel. So this is rubber band ball part 55, and I dumped out another 25 pounds of rubber bands and started placing. And I actually have a new scale on the way. It can read all the way up to 1,000 pounds, and I think the ball will be 400 pounds after I'm done with this pile, but we'll have to test it when the scale gets here. I launched some of these bands, and then I compared the ball next to me, and it's completely massive, and there's no chance I can pick it up anymore. But it's way easier to stand on than ever before, and I can even, flip off it. This ball is just completely crazy, so if you want me to take it to 1,000 pounds. So one day I decided to turn this warehouse into a cool video spot. But first I had to clean the place up, so I started by power washing the entire warehouse. And I actually power washed a few more times off camera, but this is the one I filmed the entire thing of. I washed the entire floor and then put some of this acid down, scraped some of this stuff up, and it looked like this. Then it was time to paint. Bam. It looked really good painted and was almost done, but I got this beanbag, this hoop, this trampoline that I did a flip on, and then I shot the hoop, did a dunk thing, and there's also this loft thing, but comment any video ideas you have for me. One day I decided to hang a giant hamster ball from the ceiling of the warehouse and make it a swing with me in it, and also make an actual swing. But first I wanted to play with the ball. I shot a hoop, then I bounced on it like this, and then ran and jumped and almost fell, then did a flip and another flip. And remember, don't try anything you see in this video at home, but first I wanted to make the swing. I tied it to the ceiling and it worked pretty well. We had a decent swing. And next was the hamster ball that I also tied to the ceiling and then hung on to make sure it would hold my weight. I got in, let myself get aired up, and when we removed the beanbag, I was hitting the floor. So I had to tie the hamster ball up even higher and then get in again. And this time we removed the table and it worked. I was floating. So I got a push and I was swinging in the hamster ball. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it even worked. I spun around for quite a while, then got a bigger push and did this, and then decided to flip over and do this. So yeah, it was a pretty neat experience, and when I got out, I almost got stuck and then fell. So it's now rubber band ball part 56, and I bought a 1,000-pound scale to weigh it, and it weighs in at 396 pounds, but we gotta get it to 1,000. So my friend and I began placing a giant pile of bands for what felt like an eternity, and it got dark, and we kept on placing until we were completely out. And now we gotta weigh it, but first I wanted to test standing on it, so I ran on it like a barrel, then I did that, then stood on it, and then fell again. And here it is next to my head. Then I put it back on the scale and it weighed in at 422, then 428. So I don't know, but if I should keep on adding bands. So one day I saw this video on TikTok of this guy jumping up and down in this pool and making all these waves and then collapsing like this. So I wanted to test it out and see if it would work with me. So I drug a pool out and filled it up. So then I took out a floaty, aired it all the way up, and got in and tried to repeat exactly what the guy did, jumping up and down, but I didn't see much progress. And there was no waves that made me crash, so then I just made this little whirlpool. After that, I tried again to do the splash thing, didn't work, so I swam around, did a little flip, and then got in the hamster ball. I flipped around in that and then tried the wave thing with it, and it wasn't working very well, so I just did another flip and then tried the wave thing again. And even again, but they all failed, so comment any other ideas you have. So one day someone commented on this video where I tried to replicate this video and said I had the timing all wrong. And they were right. This was my first attempt at it and it didn't do anything but make a bunch of waves. So I went to Walmart and got a rounder floaty and then tried again. And this time I tried to make the timing. That first try was better. And then the second try I did this and really tried to time it up. And it was my best run yet. And I actually got the wave to knock me down. And I also used a bunch of slow-mo in this video because I accidentally shot it in slow-mo. You can even see on this next run then a wave hitting the ring of the pool and then me falling. And then on this next one I did it really good and went like that. And I had to use that slow-mo. Comment any other ideas you want me to try. So I can't believe this ball's still going, but I'm at rubber band ball part 57, and I weigh it in at 422 pounds, but I'm going to keep on adding bands and make it even bigger. And a lot of people wonder why I wear gloves, and it's because if I don't, the bands will rub against my hand and create blisters. And I kept on placing bands until we were completely out, and look at it, it's huge. I can stand on it with ease now, but not pick it up. And it's tall enough to use as a platform to fall off of and flip. Then I tried to do this rolling trick shot and just fell on my butt. But I did make this dunk off of it and this basket. And it was finally time to weigh it in at 447 pounds. It is massive, if I should keep going. So one day I decided to build a Nerf sniper tower up in this loft, make a cool little cardboard fort, because why not? And after I was done with that, I decided to build one on the ground level that actually looked even better. And I spent a lot of time on it, made this cardboard fort, added a tower until it looked like that, and it was across from this one. Then it was time for war. We loaded our guns, and then we were ready to face off. I had the tower with the Fortnite sniper, and I kept shooting and shooting. But I didn't end up having the best luck. And even fell, but check out that cool merch. So it's another week and I'm on to rubber band ball part 58, and I weighed it in at 446 pounds, and then I had to keep on adding more. I dumped out a whole nother box of bands and got to work. And I kept on placing for about an eternity and ran through multiple pairs of gloves, but eventually we made it. This thing is now so big, the camera just doesn't justify how big it is. I was going to do a backflip, but ended up just doing that, and then I rolled it over the trampoline, fell off of it. Here's just a quick size comparison next to a ball pit ball. Then I put it on the scale, zeroed it out, and it weighed in at 472 pounds. So like this video if you want me to continue building it. So one day, someone on my Instagram gave me the idea to build a trampoline out of my giant rubber bands that I use for my giant rubber band ball. And my first attempt was pretty bad. I couldn't figure out the tightness it needed, but eventually I got it, and then I took a big strand and wrapped them all the way around this thing like this. But it wasn't tight enough, so I made this X thing, and it was even more bouncy, and it was time to test it out. I made a cool hammock, I could step over it and throw the shovels on it. And this tire, and this rubber band ball, just kidding. I tried to surf on it, and then went to Walmart to get a watermelon, some soda, and some plates to throw on it. And the watermelon ended up being too heavy to bounce on it, so I moved on to the root beer, and it wouldn't explode, so I took it outside to do it. It launched pretty decently, and then I threw the plate, and it didn't break at first, but the second throw it shattered. So I threw it again, broke some bands, and then I just kind of went ham on some stuff. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 59, and it's almost at 500 pounds. So I got out another box of the 15-inch bands to see if I could get it there. And this was one of the most challenging rubber band ball videos because the bands were super tight and kept breaking, and it was also really hot. So we ended up having to take a day and come back to finish the pile. And while we were placing bands, we talked about how weird it was we were even making this. But it's also super cool. Just look at it here next to me. I measured it 30 inches high and like 98 inches around, and then rolled it. And it almost took some stuff out. Then I tried to make a basket off of it, but failed. Then it was time to see if it was 500 pounds, but it fell 3 pounds short. So then I just rolled it off, like if I should keep on adding bands. I'm now to rubber band ball part 60, and we started off trying to do backflips but failed, so then we weighed it in at 496 pounds. And I used a lot of rubber bands to build this giant rubber band trampoline, but I had enough left over to get it over 500 pounds. We took a little break and then came back, and we finished off the entire pile, and it was done. The bands are now getting really tight in the ball, and look at its size comparison next to a tire. And then I tried to crush this watermelon but missed and crushed the pool instead. Tried to get it out, a lot of water came out, and it wouldn't crush the watermelon, so then I just took it inside, fell on it, and weighed it at 515 pounds. So like if I should take it to 1,000 pounds. So one day I got another super strong magnet to go magnet fishing with. But first I wanted to test it, picking up this chair first, then this helium tank, and it did a pretty good job, so I was ready to go fishing after I threw this frisbee thing. I first took it out to this pond to test it and threw it out, pulled in, and for a while I was getting a lot of nothing. And after a long while, eventually on a really big throw, I hooked something and pulled up this thing. Kind of bizarre. Then I dropped it and accidentally pushed it out further with my magnet, but I got it. And then the next day we went to a different pond to test. I dragged the magnet along and pulled up this. Yeah. And then I threw it back and pulled up whatever this is. It was like a coin and a really black piece of metal. And after that I felt something really hook on, but I couldn't get it. One day I ordered a bunch of giant Legos to build a brick wall and run into it. So we built the brick wall, and then I got on the scooter and ran into it and completely nailed my nose and made it bleed a little bit. Yeah, it really hurt. So then we put it back together and took the rubber band ball to it. And after that, I ordered even more Legos because I was like, I need to make the wall even bigger. And then I tried to jump over it, which was kind of a fail. So let me know what else I should do or if I should buy more. This is rubber band ball part 64, and it can barely fit through a doorway, and here it is next to a tire. I rolled it to the other end of the warehouse and then decided to crush a bunch of poppers with it. Here it goes. And after that, I rolled it onto the scale, breaking this little wood ramp and weighing it in at 585 pounds. And it was now time to get the ball over 600 pounds, so I dumped out a bunch more bands, and then look at this other angle. The ball is huge, and the camera just doesn't do it justice how big it is. And my friend helped me place bands for so long, until eventually the pile was out and the ball was done. I rolled it over the beanbag and then used it as like a giant exercise ball that's just huge and weighs like 600 pounds. I crushed this ball pit ball and then pushed it with the hoverboard onto the scale and weighed it at 605 pounds. So like if I should keep on going. So one day someone commented telling me to take my giant 580-pound rubber band ball back to the pawn shop like old days, but it's too big, so I'm going to take all this random stuff in this little rubber band ball bag.
What happened to it? Did you put it in water?
And I told him it was a different ball, then showed him a picture of the big one.
Gosh, how big is that now?
I said 580, and then he said I should just put it on eBay. And then I moved on and asked him what he'd give me for this thing.
About $50 in rubber bands, $30.
And I couldn't sell it for that, so I had to move on to this ball.
Super high.
Wow, yeah, that's cool. Did you get this at like Chuck E. Cheese?
And then I told him the price.
$16. I paid $8 for it, so I wanted to double my money.
Oh,
Yeah, we didn't end up making a deal on the ball either, so I moved on to this tiny rubber band gun. And I threw him a high ball number.
$200.
He gave me a weird look, so then I just moved on to the last item.
Magic, basically.
I said it was super rare water repellent spray, and I wanted a lot of money for it, but he didn't budge, so then he tried to sell me some stuff, including these cool shades. So one day I decided to fill my giant hamster ball up with ball pit balls, and I've done this before, but this time I'm going to do it with a lot more balls. I took all the balls from this dome, got in the ball, and here it was, all filled up. It was crazy. I rolled around in it, then rolled it outside, fell down, and here was the view. Then my friend Brendan tried to throw stuff at me and roll me over. Then I decided to test if I could ride this electric scooter in, and I got in with it, but I couldn't make enough momentum for the scooter to go. So I just got in with this hoverboard instead, rolled around, did a lot of spinning stuff, and then I fell again, and went outside. Let me know what else I should try. So one day someone commented on my video with this giant dome thing and told me to put ball pit balls in it, so I put the whole ball pit in it. And it took a pretty long time having to air it up and move all the balls in, and then I had to move them from this thing to this thing until eventually they were all in the one big circle. And it looked really cool. I fell in it, then looked around, and then ran around, and then fell again, threw some balls at the camera, tried to run, and it wasn't that deep because it was so big, but let me know what else I should do with this thing. So I'm now at rubber band ball part 63, and we built this Lego tower to knock it over with the rubber band ball. It completely knocked it over, and then I weighed the ball in at 555 pounds, and then we got busy placing more bands to make it even heavier. I had a whole box dumped out, and my friend Brendan helped me place all these bands. And to make it go faster, we tried to do 2 and 3 bands at a time. And these are like the max custom length bands I can find, so I don't know what I'm going to do after this, but we were done. And the ball is now at an unreal level of massiveness. It about crushed this fort, then almost hit Brendan, and we weighed it in at 580 pounds, so like if you want me to keep on going. So one day someone commented telling me to fill this dome thing up with water, so I was going to do it. My plan was to fill this section up first, and then get in the other section, zip it up, and let it fill all the way until I was releasing it. But it started to leak through, which was ruining my plan. So I had to release early and let all the water out, and this is what it looked like. All the water did kind of rush in, and it made this cool little pool in the dome. It wasn't as much water as I wanted, but I still made the most of it, and then left. Let me know what else I should do. So it's rubber band ball part 62, and I wanted to try something a little bit different this time. I took about 5 pounds of bands and looped them all together like this with the help of my friend, and we had this long strand that we tried to wrap around the ball, but it was kind of hard, so I rolled it, and that was still pretty hard, and the bands kept falling off, but eventually we got it. But we wanted to test if the same amount of bands was better just placing the normal way, and after we placed that pile, we realized it was. So we got out 3 more bags and placed the entire pile. And these videos always take so long to make, so leave a like if you actually want me to keep going and adding on to this ball. It's just huge now. Just look at it again next to a basketball. And then we put it on the scale and weighed it in at 555 pounds. So again, like if I should keep going. So one day I ordered this giant bubble dome thing because I saw it on the internet and thought it looked cool and had to buy it. I got it all the way aired up, and it was pretty cool looking. I opened it up, went inside, and it kind of felt like one big quarantine chamber. I was completely separated from the outside world. Here it is inside, and then I got bored and decided to put my giant rubber band ball in it. I put that in a beanbag and then chilled. So comment any cool ideas you have for this thing and I'll do them. So one day I got a bunch of helium to fill up this giant 6-foot water balloon and an air mattress. I filled up the balloon until I was out of helium, and then I let it go and grabbed it. Then I tried to see what it could lift, and not really anything. Then I punched it and kicked it and slammed it on the pool, which made it fly away. Like this. And the balloon just kept going off into the distance, and the next day it was time to try an air mattress. I filled it all the way up and it didn't do anything. So I put it in the pool, threw the shovel on it and hit it, then sucked some helium up, and then so did my cameraman.
Part 61.
So I'm now to rubber band ball part 61, and the ball is over 500 pounds, but I guess everyone wants me to keep on going. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. My friend Brendan and I, we placed bands for a while, then left and came back the next day to place again, and this happened. A band broke and made him launch backwards. So I had to help him back up, and then we got back to placing. And I think this is Brendan's last time placing the rubber bands on the ball. But after way too long, we were done, and the ball is huge, and the bands are way too tight. Just look at me standing on it and then trying to bounce stuff on it. And I finally rolled it back on the scale and weighed it in at 541 pounds. So, like, if you want me to keep on going. So one day I visited Soup Timmy, a Rubik's Cube artist, because a little while back he inspired me to make my own Rubik's Cube art, and I ended up making Shrek. But Timmy's like a Rubik's Cube pro, and he can solve a Rubik's Cube in under 10 seconds. I scrambled one for him, and it's almost as if he slows down time, because he got it done in literally 7.6 seconds. Then he showed me he can even solve one with one hand in 30 seconds while playing with a ping pong ball. He even has the fastest time while solving a cube hula hoop. I then had him mix up a cube for me, and then I beat his record and finished off his giant art wall. Guess I'm just a pro. No, but for real, this stuff is insane. He even showed me a magic trick where he instantly solved the cube, then showed me this giant cube and a fidget spinner. This is rubber band ball part 64, and it can barely fit through a doorway, and here it is next to a tire. I rolled it to the other end of the warehouse and then decided to crush a bunch of poppers with it. Here it goes. And after that, I rolled it onto the scale, breaking this little wood ramp and weighing it in at 585 pounds. And it was now time to get the ball over 600 pounds, so I dumped out a bunch more bands, and then look at this other angle. The ball is huge, and the camera just doesn't do it justice how big it is. And my friend helped me place bands for so long, until eventually the pile was out. And the ball was done. I rolled it over the beanbag and then used it as like a giant exercise ball that's just huge and weighs like 600 pounds. I crushed this ball pit ball and then pushed it with the hoverboard onto the scale and weighed it at 605 pounds. So like if I should keep on going. One day I ordered a bunch of giant Legos to build a brick wall and run into it. So we built the brick wall and then I got on the scooter and ran into it and completely nailed my nose and made it bleed a little bit. Yeah, it really hurt. So then we put it back together and took the rubber band ball to it. And after that, I ordered even more Legos because I was like, I need to make the wall even bigger. And then I tried to jump over it, which was kind of a fail. So let me know what else I should do or if I should buy more. So one day I decided to test some water repellent spray on some stuff, including my giant rubber band ball, which I guess is already kind of water repellent, and these shoes to walk on water, this shirt, this glove, this lampshade, and this towel, these glasses, and my name. Then I came back after 24 hours to test it. The glove didn't work, and the lampshade, the water bounced right off the side that was sprayed, and not the side that wasn't. And then the shirt kind of worked. If you get really up close, you can see the water beating off of some of it. Right there. Then these glasses that didn't really do much, and this towel that actually kind of worked way better on the side that was sprayed than the non. And it made the water just sit on the surface of the rubber band ball and just run off. Then I looked at the wet concrete and my name was really there, but then I tested the shoes and it didn't work. So I'm now all the way to part 65 of my giant rubber band ball, and here's a little rubber band ball being thrown on it, and then me pushing it to the scale to weigh it in at 607 pounds. Then we threw down another pile to keep on placing and make it even bigger, and people ask me all the time what my goal is for this ball, and I don't even know. I'm just going to try to get it as big as possible. And it always takes way longer than it looks to place all these bands, but eventually we got it done. I tried to push it with my hoverboard, and kind of worked. Then we put it back on the scale, and it was like 30 pounds off, so it actually weighs like 634 pounds. So, like, if you want me to keep on going. So I'm in a rubber band ball part 66, and the ball is huge. Look at me behind it. You can't even see me. And I put it on the scale, and it weighs 630 pounds, but we're going to get it even bigger and keep on adding bands. And my friend Brennan and I began placing bands for a very long time. And a lot of people say it looks like an egg now and not a ball, but it's very hard to keep it round because it's so big. And we try our best. And after we finished with the pile, I messed around with it, tried to throw balls on it, and then dunked with it. And I compared it next to this tiny rubber band ball and my head, then fell off of it, and took it back on the scale to weigh it in at 655 pounds. So, like if I should keep on going. So one day while scootering, I dropped my laptop and then dropped it again on accident, totally on accident. And I had to fix it, so I looked up on the internet and got some toothpaste and some lemons to repair the crack. I've dumped the toothpaste out, started brushing it really hard, and I brushed it for quite a while and realized it wasn't going to do anything. Yeah, so then I tried to fix this plate and bam, it was bigger and better, and then I broke it. But then I tried the lemon juice on the laptop, and that didn't really work either. So then I just got sad. So one day I decided to fix some of the damage on this car with life hacks I saw on the internet, starting with toothpaste to fix these scratches, which didn't end up working. So then we just moved on to the wheels using this black tire shine, and then tried to repair this crack on the windshield, and the shaving cream or toothpaste didn't really work. So then I just washed the entire car and really tried to actually detail it. I used the Dollar General leather cleaner on the cloth seats, and it looked really great. And then vacuumed the entire thing and used this plunger to get the dents out, but it actually got this dent out of the roof. So one day I bought a watermelon because a lot of people want to know how I made this giant 600-pound rubber band ball, and it all started with a watermelon and a lot of rubber bands. And I'm going to do it all again with this watermelon so you guys can see. I put a bunch of rubber bands on the watermelon until eventually this happens. Bam, and all the rubber bands fly together and create a little ball. And I was kind of covered in watermelon, but I had this little ball, so I was happy. We threw the watermelon at the car, and then we were ready to make this ball neat. And I spent a little while double knotting a bunch of bands around this ball until it was pretty round and neat, and bounced pretty good. And I even crushed it with the giant rubber band ball, so let me know what else I should do. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 67, and we actually made a couple more tiny rubber band balls. Here they are on a mini trampoline, and the big one was too big for it, so we just put it on the scale and weighed it in at 655 pounds. And now it's time to make it bigger. I dumped out a whole nother pile. Then my friend and I got to placing bands for a really long time. And the bigger this ball gets, the harder it is for it to look bigger. So we got to add a lot of bands every time. And we finished up the pile, and then I wanted to test if it would go through a doorway, and it wouldn't. It's too big now. And I failed trying to get it back on the scale, so we had to both push it on the scale and weigh it in at 679 pounds. So, like, if you want me to keep on going. So one day I went to one of those warehouses that has overstocked Amazon pallets you can buy, and I bought this one for $500 to see what was in it, like a cool mystery box. I opened it up at my warehouse, and there was these pillows, a sleeping bag, a fan, a dog bed, and this automatic dog food feeder. And this thing that we didn't know what it was, but it actually ended up being a sword. And at this point, I was already happy with my purchase. Next was some camping stuff, a Christmas tree, a trash can, a nice microwave, a not so nice microwave, a bottle of water, a Serta rolly chair, this thing, and this outdoor bench. And we added everything up to be worth over $1,000. Then we tested out the sword and first used the wrong side, but then destroyed a can. And comment down below if I should try to sell all this stuff or just use it. So one day I ordered this human hamster wheel to float down the creek on. I got it out and aired it all the way up to test it out and run in it. And it was kind of short, but I made it work and I could roll in it and it was pretty cool. So then I loaded it up and took it to the creek. I put it in the water, got on it, and we were off. The only problem was the creek was pretty low and there wasn't much current that day, so I had to do a lot of spinning and tried to make it out to the current. Because further down the creek there was a little bit of a current, and I tried my best to make it to it until I was there. And once I got there, it was pretty insane in this thing. Here's the video of me and me inside, and then I just kept on going forever. No, I'm kidding. I came back and then took a nap. So one day it was rubber band ball part 68, and the rubber band ball is now almost 700 pounds, but today we're going to get it there. And somebody in the last video commented to get colored rubber bands, so I got these black rubber bands so you can see them placed on the ball. And the cool thing about two different colors is you can see them all going onto the ball, and it took us quite a while, but eventually we got it done. And the ball looks really cool now. It looks kind of three-dimensional. Look at it. The black bands are more sleek than the other ones. And the ball is so massive. Look at it in comparison to my head. Then I zeroed out the scale and put it back on, and it weighed 706 pounds. So, like, if I should keep on adding bands. So one day I bought like 1 million Orbeez to dump in this inflatable pool and get in. Because I've always seen people do this kind of stuff and always wanted to try it. So here it goes. I dumped all the Orbeez out into this pool, mixed it up, and here's an hour time lapse of it growing. And this is what they looked like at the end of the hour. Yeah, they still needed to get bigger, so I came back the next day and it was completely full. Look at it. I got in the pool and the Orbeez got huge. Look at this one. Then I decided to lay down in it, move around. I moved my legs around like this, made a bunch of waves, splashed my face with Orbeez, and jumped in them. Then I dropped this rubber band ball in them and it made a pretty big splash. Here's the slow-mo and here's another drop. Like if I should fill this pool up to the top. So one day I ordered jumbo Orbeez to see if they were that much bigger than regular Orbeez. I filled it up in this container full of water, and I didn't know how much water to add, so I just added this much, and 24 hours later, it all looked like this. They were really big. Here's a size comparison to regular Orbeez. They looked like little bouncy balls, so then I tried to bounce them, and then this one broke. So then I took this one and bounced it and broke it like this. But they look so cool, I decided to taste one. Don't try them. Then we found this clear one that turned me upside down, and this one was even more round. So let me know what else I should do with these. So I'm now to part 69 of my giant rubber band ball, and it's now over 700 pounds, but we're going to get it even bigger. I dumped out 25 pounds of bands to place on the ball, and I started placing with the help of my friend Brendan. And we actually placed 3 bands at once the whole time to make it go by a lot quicker. Until eventually we were done. I stood on it, and then tried to walk on it, and tried to walk again. It was actually kind of successful. Then I pushed it over here, dropped this ball on it, jumped on it, and then we tried to figure out how to get on the scale, and weighed it in at 727 pounds. So, like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day someone commented saying I should throw these giant Orbeez at cars in the street. And I'm going to do that, but first I wanted to test some other stuff out. Throwing against the wall, dropping one, throwing one at my friend, tossing one in this pool of Orbeez and comparing them, lighting them on fire, which didn't do much. So then I tried putting them in the microwave, which didn't do much until we put it in for over 30 seconds and they all started popping. And were really hot to touch. Then I tried crushing them with this ball, look at the slow-mo, and then it was time to throw them at this car, which I think they got mad. So I just ran. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 70. It knocked over all these crates. Then I zeroed out the scale and weighed it in at 730 pounds, and it was time to add a bunch more bands. So my friend Brennan and I got busy placing this entire pile, which took so long, and we ended up taking a break and coming back the next day to finish it. But eventually it was done, and the ball is now even bigger. Look at it next to my head, me jumping on it, then me rolling it to Brendan, him rolling it back even faster, then dunking on it, and we weighed it back in at 755 pounds. So like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I filled an even bigger pool up with Orbeez. I filled the other one up with about 2 million Orbeez, and I'm going to fill this one up with millions more. And we were going to reuse the old Orbeez in this pool too, but they kind of smelled bad, so we just went with all new, and it looked like this. It was pretty insane looking and really colorful. Just millions and millions of colorful little orbs. I got in it and then splashed around, then jumped in and tried to swim across, then jumped off this mini trampoline, and I even put this inflatable zebra in there and tried to make it look like I was in a weird rap video, and fell in, like if I should add even more Orbeez. So one day I filled this pull-up with Orbeez in my last video, and then people wanted me to add more. And so I did. I bought like a few million more, added a bunch more water, then came back the next day, and it looked like this. And the Orbeez were a lot less watered down this time. It was just solid Orbeez for days. And when I would fall in it, I basically just got stuck, and then I tried to swim like this. Then threw some Orbeez at the camera, and tried to get on this floaty, and then skateboarded this little rubber band ball into the pool. Then I tossed it way up in the air to see what the splash would look like, and here's the slow-mo. Yeah, pretty cool. Like if I should fill this car with Orbeez. So it's now rubber band ball part 71, and this ball is insanely massive at 750 pounds, but we're going to make it even bigger. And this time, half the bands are these half-inch bands that I've never tested before, so we'll see how they go. And the bands were just really tight, so we ended up moving the ball to see if it would make it better, and it did, because none of the bands had been placed on that side that much. And it also helped make the ball more even. But eventually, after a long time, we were done. The ball is huge. Here I am trying to stand on it and walk on it, and almost fall. I dropped some Orbeez on it, threw a water balloon at it, and crushed a water balloon, and then weighed it in at 777 pounds. So like this video if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day someone commented that I should make a second rubber band ball, and I already have 3. This one, and my giant one. This one's huge. I can sit on it, but not sit on the other ones because they weigh 0.6 pounds and 15 pounds. Well, the giant one is 777 pounds, but I'm still waiting on a shipment of bands, so I'm going to add on to the other one. I just grabbed a bunch of random bands at Walmart, then went back to the warehouse, threw the ball on the table, dumped out a bunch of bands, and got to placing. I started with all the colored bands to make it look really cool, and it did. It ended up looking like this. It was cool. Then I moved on to these ones to make it really tight and compact. And after a while, I was done. Here it is. Rolled it off the table and compared it next to the giant ball, then my head, and then threw it as high as I could. And it's pretty bouncy and weighs 17 pounds. Like if I should keep doing this ball too. So it's rubber band ball part 72, and the ball's a little messed up from a video that's not out yet, but it still weighs 775 pounds, so we're going to keep on adding bands. And this time I got these special blue bands. And we began fixing up the ball and making it look cooler with these blue bands. And we kept on rotating it, that way the bands would be spread more evenly, and it would be easier to place the bands. And after a very long time, we were done. I about crashed into the wall, then jumped on it, and dropped my phone. Now, this ball is completely insane. Here's next to the little ball next to me, and then I struggled to put it on the scale. But got it and weighed it at over 800 pounds, like if I should keep on going. So the other day I made this giant rubber band trampoline, and people wanted me to make it even bigger and add a lot more bands. So I spent another hour or so adding even more bands until it looked like it was about to bend in. It could support my weight, but I wanted to test its bounciness. First with this can that eventually exploded, and next with this basketball that didn't bounce super high, so I got out this watermelon, and it just went right through it. So I got out this tire that completely broke the entire trampoline and bent the metal clear like in half almost, as you can see right here. So I just threw it in the pool. So it's rubber band ball part 74, and the ball won't fit through a doorway. It's over 800 pounds, and it's looking kind of rough, but we're on our way to 1,000 pounds, and we're going to get it there. We dumped out a bunch more bands, and we've been using this same band for a while. They still work on the ball, but we almost need bigger bands. We kept on placing until it was done. And it's actually getting hard to jump on because it's so tall. I pulled a stray band onto it, and then crushed this box, and then pulled it to the scale. And at first, the scale was acting broken, but eventually it weighed in at 842 pounds. So, like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So it's rubber band ball part 73, and I about knocked over a fan with it and struggled to make it over to the scale, but weighed it in at 800 pounds. But we're going to add even more bands. And the ball still looks kind of broken, so hopefully after we place all these bands, it looks a lot neater. And the ball is finally getting close to 1,000 pounds, which is what the scale maxes out at. And we kept turning the ball to make it as round as possible. And after a long while of placing bands, we were finished. And the ball does look a lot neater. I jumped on it like this. Then it accidentally moved the couch when I was trying to make it over to the scale. Brendan tried pushing it on, but failed alone. So we both had to push it, and it weighed 829 pounds. I then pushed it off and took it outside to show the cows. Yeah, they thought it was pretty cool. Like if I should keep on going.